Hi, my name is Brian. I'm a DevOps consultant with the Release Team, and welcome to our What Makes a Jira project. In today's video, we're going to talk about permissions and roles in your project. So, permissions and roles, what are those? Well, they allow your projects to be seen, your work items to be seen, or work items to be created in your projects, or being able to work in those projects. So, we're going to kind of talk about the differences between the permissions with a software project, the permissions with the Jira Service Management project, and with a business project. So here we are in our mobile dev project, our software project, and we're on the summary screen. We've talked about work item types, priorities, workflows, screens, fields, notifications. We're going to scroll up here just a little bit. We're going to talk about roles and permissions. So first, let's talk about permissions before we talk about roles. So the permissions, like I said, are what allow your projects to be seen, how people are able to interact with these projects. So you'll see here, we've got a scheme. Let's click on scheme. And like before with the notification scheme, the permission scheme isn't a box for multiple schemes to exist in. It is just basically the settings for that project's permissions. So in this one, we're using the default software permission scheme. So this is what we see on the screen. A lot of information. We have this permission helper, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Actions. Then we have the permissions, along with the users, the groups, and the project roles. So let's talk about a few of these. So you have the first option here, which is administer project. So this allows an individual to be a project admin and allow them the project admin permissions. Now, what each one of those means, that's where I want you to do a little bit of homework and take a look and see in the Atlassian's documentation what exactly can a project admin do. Another one is manage issue layouts. So if you watched our video about screens, we talk about the issue layouts. So if you have this permission, that's where you're able to manage the layouts. And then we have edit workflows. Once again, if you watched our workflow video, we talked about how to edit a workflow, create a workflow. And if you have this permission, you're able to edit a workflow in that project. So those are the administration permissions that you can have in a project. Now let's look at the overall project permissions. Browse projects. So with this permission here, this allows your project to be seen and allow the ability to browse the items that are in there. Manage sprints sounds just like what it is. The ability to manage sprints. A service project agent. So this really resides in the Jira Service Management project. You have your service project agents. Those are the ones who are able to work those tickets. Aggregated data, development tools, and view read-only workflows. So maybe you're not a project admin, but you want to see the life cycle of your tickets, your work items. You want to see what that workflow looks like. If this permission is granted to you, you can look at a read-only view of that workflow. And then there's some issue permissions. So we have archive issues. So that will allow you to archive them, make you an assignable user. If you're unable to assign a ticket or a work item to someone, they most likely aren't an assignable user. If you're not able to assign an issue, you probably don't have the assign issue permission. We also have close issues, the ability to create issues. So just because a project is visible doesn't automatically mean that everyone can create a work item in there. They have to have this create issues permission. So your project can have the browse projects for everyone. For this particular project, they're able to look at the project and the issues within them, but they're not able to create anything unless you have this create issues permission selected and who you have here. So in this one, for who's selected, you're going to see a project role of Atlassian add-ons, which is typical, and then you have application access. And we're going to talk more about the user levels that you can grant these permissions to. delete issues, edit issues, link issues. All these sound, you know, pretty self-explanatory. Resolve issues, set issue security. That's something we'll also talk about. We're not going to go fully in depth on issue security, but it is an important part of permissions. Transition issues. So if you're not able to move a work item through its life cycle, through that workflow, you don't have the ability to transition issues. And you can see that here. Restoring archive issues. So those are the ones that are for our issue kind of permissions. Next is voters and watcher permissions, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Manage watchers, and you can view voters and watchers. And then we get into our comment section. So in here, this is where it grants permissions around comments, adding, deleting all, or deleting own. So that's two very different things. Deleting all comments allows that person to delete any comment. Doesn't matter if it's theirs or someone else's, they can delete that comment. If they only have the permission to delete only their own comments, then they're not able to delete other users' comments. Helps that ticket integrity, that audit log. Same with edit all comments or edit own comments. All of these here, when it comes to deleting or editing all comments, usually these permissions are only defaulted to administrators of the project. And then we have attachment permissions. Create, delete, once again, all or delete own. And then time tracking permissions. So if you have time tracking turned on, this is going to allow those permissions to take place for who can edit a work log, work on issues, once again, delete all or delete own work logs, or edit all or edit own work logs. And then here's a few other items as well. That's for product discovery, etc., etc. here. So these are the permissions that reside within that permission scheme. Now, once again, as I said before, in every video, if your permission scheme is shared by other projects, any update that you make to that permission scheme will affect those other projects. So you may intend to open up access a little bit more in project A. A fair request came through that allows for an additional permission to come through for that one. But project A and project B share the same permission scheme. If you make that change in that permission scheme, now that change is opening up in both project A and B where it may not be intended to do anything in B. So that's one thing to keep in mind when making changes to a permission scheme, just like it is with all the other schemes. What does permission helper do? So what this can do is help us figure out maybe why someone can't do something. So let's go ahead and let's put a name in here for a user. And let's find an issue. And Alana says that she's not able to view Mobile 40. Well, the first thing I want to do is make sure she has access to the project. So let's go ahead and hit submit. And what this is going to do is it's going to do a quick permissions check. It's going to show here the permission function, which is browse project, the user, the project, the scheme, and the issue number. And then it's going to show you the status if they passed or not. And then down here, it's going to show you why they passed. You can also select any failed conditions. And then it will also show you any failed conditions. Maybe the status isn't green, as in they have that permission. Maybe it does have that red X. Down here, looking at the conditions will give you clues into why they're not able to access that specifically. The other options we have here is, of course, our edit permissions or use a different scheme. What I want to do here is use a completely different scheme so we're not making a change to our default software scheme, which is being used across multiple projects. And how do I know it's being used by multiple projects? Because in here, in our overall admin screen, in our permission schemes, we can see which schemes are being used by which project. And you can get to that by going up here to the cog or to your Jira settings option, going down here and selecting permission schemes. So here we can see all the permission schemes that we have what projects they are related to, and we can look at a few of these actions such as permissions, which allows us to grant or remove permissions. We can copy the notification scheme, or we can edit the name or description of the scheme. So what I want to do is I want to make a copy of the default software scheme because that's what our mobile dev project is using, but I want it to have a few different items. So I'm going to select copy, and now we'll see here we have a copy of our default software schemes. Let's go ahead and change the name so we know the purpose of this permission scheme. So I went ahead and updated the name and the description of this permission scheme so I know what it is used for and its intent. So we'll hit update, and now we just have to go in there and find it. So there's our mobile dev permission scheme. I'm just going to click on it, and this is going to take us to the configure screen, to the edit screen. So you'll see here, it does look a little bit different than we were just looking at it on the project view. We have a few areas where it's going to call out things that are new or what that permission may actually grant or allow for. We do still have our permission helper over here. We also have our grant permission button over here. It's going to show us who the permission is granted to via project role, or if it's anything further, such as any logged in user or other items that I'll show you here in just a minute. From here, we can select update. Now, what does that do? Update is going to allow us to add someone or something to that permission. So here we'll see we can grant it to project role. We can select the project role, application access. So this is if they have a JSM license, a Jira software license, anything like that. We can allow it to our groups. So that could be our internal groups that we have within Jira, or if you have Active Directory or something that is syncing groups, you could do that. Public, that allows it for anyone on the internet to perform those tasks. Any logged in user, so as long as they're logged in, they can do that permission. Current assignee, self-explanatory, you got your reporter. A group custom field value, so this is if you have custom fields that are using the group. Depending on what that custom field value is, you're granting them that permission dynamically. Project lead, a single user, a user custom field value, so this is kind of similar to the group one, but with a user value. And then the service project customer portal access. This one is used obviously for the Jira Service Management side of permission schemes. You can also select remove, and you can remove that permission from that specific group, project role, however be it. Let's go ahead and let's grant a permission for the create issues permission. So we're going to hit update, and what I want to do is let's just go ahead and select the project lead. We're going to allow the project lead to create an issue. Granted, this one already has the any logged in user, so the project lead should be able to, but now you'll see here, it's added the project lead to be able to create an issue. So there we go. Now the project lead can do that. It dynamically saves. We can go back to our project, and now let's go ahead and let's switch the permission scheme. So we go here to actions. We'll select use a different scheme. We will find the name of our scheme, which is mobile dev permission scheme, and we'll hit associate. And now if we go down here to create issues, we will see that our project lead has been added. So that's how you do the permission scheme in a project. You can go here to the summary tab, go down here to permissions and select the scheme. You can also get to it on the left hand side where it says permissions. You can select permissions, and it's going to take you to the exact same thing. Now let's talk about issue security, which is also an item here under permissions. So you'll see right now this says issues none. Let's select that. So let's say in this project we have a large group of users who are able to view work items, but there's a certain group of items that can only be seen by a specific group of users in the project. This is where we apply that issue security, allowing those issue security schemes to apply onto those work items, makes it so that it's only visible to the team members you want to view. I do implore you to look into issue security because there are levels to it, such as security level and issue security scheme. So please look and review that if that's something that you are interested in or something that your team or company needs to add to a project. Let's move on to another important part of permissions, and we're going to talk about project roles. So over here on our summary screen, we've got our roles, and we get a little bit of information here already. We know who our project lead is. The default assignee is our project lead, and then we have roles. Let's click on View Project Roles. So as I mentioned earlier in this video and also in our notification schemes video, project roles are how you can really dynamically add and remove users from a project without always having to go through and update the permission scheme or the notification scheme. Using the project role as those who have the access or are receiving the notifications will allow you to not have to edit those constantly because they're being removed from the role or being added to the role, and that role is already applied. So you'll see here, it gives us a few things. There's not a lot of information on this one. We just have our site admins as administrators and in action. From here, you could search for roles. You could do a filtering down of administrator, member, and type in a name if you need to. So let's add some roles here. So first, let's go ahead and let's add myself. I'm going to add myself as an administrator. So I'll sit here, I'll add one person. Now you'll see name, email, the role, and action. So you can remove that person from it. Now, okay, I added myself as administrator, but actually I might also need to be a member because we're using member as one of our permissions settings. So we'll select member, and now you'll see that I have two roles. You can also go through and do the exact same thing and say, okay, maybe they only needed to be a member. You can now select that and dynamically update that role. You'll also see when you hit add people, there's other ways to do it from Google, Slack, or Microsoft. So if you have those connections set up, that is another way that you can add users to project roles. Another thing that you're also able to do here is add groups to a role. So maybe I want to have the administrators group as administrators in this project. I'm going to go ahead and select that, select administrators, and now we'll see that the administrators group, indicated by not a picture or not an actual email, has the administrators role. Maybe you decided, you know what, that's too many cooks in the kitchen. Let's hit remove. And we can simply remove them. So like I mentioned, using roles this way allows you to just add members to a project role, and then your notifications, your permissions, even automations that maybe are utilizing project roles, they're all going to update automatically. So you're doing it with one screen instead of going and saying, all right, I removed this user from the notification scheme. Oh, but I didn't remove them from the permission scheme and they've joined a different team. So they can still go into our project. Another way to get to this is the People tab over here on your left-hand side. So if you select People, it's going to take you exactly back to this Project Roles tab. So that's permission schemes and project roles for a software project. What is different about a Jira Service Management project? So we're going to go here to our Human Resources project, our JSM project, and we're going to look over here on the right-hand side. So we see we have permissions and we have roles. One thing you will notice here is that since this is our HR project, we do have issue security set up, so we can talk a little bit more about that. First, let's look at the permission scheme. What has changed? Is there anything different with that? And the answer is no. It's all going to show a lot of the same information. The one thing that you are going to see, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, is The customer portal access is a role that you can add or grant permissions to. So you'll see here for browse projects, we have the service project customer portal access. If this role was not granted to this permission, then your portal truly isn't open to customers because it's not accessible via the portal. The other role that will be a little bit different is service desk team. Once again, this is who can work those items. If you don't have your service desk team as your service project agent, then hopefully you have them in there individually, but best practice is you should have them as a project role. But if you don't have your service desk team as the service project agent, they're not able to work those items. So let's go ahead and let's go back to our summary and let's look at our issue security for our HR project. A perfect project to have issue security set up. So you'll see here we've got two different levels here on our security level. We have our HR team and we have our HR managers. In here, we included a description of what each one of these security levels are. So here we have the HR team is all members. The HR managers is the elevated visibility for managers of HR team. And then it's going to show you who resides in each one of those security levels. So with specific security levels applied to specific tickets, if one is an HR team, that means all members of the HR team are able to view that work item. However, if it has a security level of only HR managers, only individuals in these areas over here, so group, project role, reporter, and single user mentioned here, are only going to be able to view those work items. What else do we have that's similar in a Jira Service Management project as it was with a Jira software project? Project roles, these are going to look the same, right? They all look very much the exact same. One thing you have here is you can call it your service desk customers, and you can also call out, like I said before, your service desk team. So once again, you can add and remove roles here like we did previously. But looking over here on the left-hand side under the Access tab, we're going to see we talked about people and access, project permissions, which is our permission scheme. The next one is customer permissions. So this is where another layer is added with Jira Service Management. Here we have our channel access permissions. So this will allow our portal, we can have it to be open where anyone can submit requests to the project via the portal, or restricted. So only those that we've invited to this project can submit requests. And then we have customer sharing, which is very important. What does customer sharing mean? We have options where our customers can search for other customers within their organizations. So within Jira Service Management, you do have customers, and then customers can belong to organizations. Within this option, they are allowed to search for other customers within their organizations. The second option is they can search within their organizations, or they can manually enter the email address of another customer within the project. So it's just another layer added onto that first option where they can search for customers within their organization, or if they know the email address of another customer of this project, they can enter it there. And then the third option is they can search for other customers within their project or organization. So they can search for anyone within the project or organization. They don't need to know someone's email address. They can just do a search. Now, there are other permissions that do apply to the portal, and this is a overall Jira admin, site admin permission. So let's take a look here at the customer access settings. So here we have our customer access settings for JSM. Let's talk about what these mean really quick. So we have our account types where we can allow for internal or external. So with the external checked, with allow portal only accounts to be created for new customers accessing the help center, this allows for new accounts to basically just be created, right? From here, we can select that and only have it with specific email domains. For internal, this is those who are already a part of it or an approved domain of your instance. We then have portal access, so we can allow customers to create accounts, or we will not allow them to create accounts. So if this first option is selected, only agents or admins can create accounts for the customers. If this second one is selected, now the customer can create their own account. So if you truly need a wide open portal, selecting this and having an open portal in this previous setting here allows them to sign up and then also submit the tickets beforehand before having an account, and it will create that account for them, allowing it to be a truly open portal. The last item we have here is our work item security, which is going to look familiar. It's our issue level security. So that will take you here to the screen that we looked at previously. So as you can see with the Jira Service Management project, there are a few more levels of permission. You have your project permission that we looked at before with that permission scheme, but then we have the extra layers of the customer permission. So let's take a look at what a business project permission looks like. So here on our business project side, we have kind of our tailored down options. We're going to select access. This is going to look basically like the project roles that we've seen in both a software project and a Jira Service Management project. The first thing here is project access. It's going to show if it's open. You can limit it. And here it kind of gives you a little explanation of it. Or you can make it private. So only admin and people you add to the project can search for, view, create, or edit issue. Limited is anyone with access to the site can search for, view, and comment on the project's issues, but only people that you add to the project are able to create and edit the issues. And here you have your add people. So this is where you can add people like we did previously with a role. You can also manage roles. So from here you can select, and from here you can create a new role. And what this does is this overtakes what we did earlier with the permission scheme in both the software and service management projects, where this is allowing you kind of that same flexibility, but keeping it a little more restraint, where you create the role name, what they're able to do, and then who you want to add in that role. You can also select the plus sign to duplicate a role. So maybe you want it to have some of the same permissions, but you want to name the role differently. You can also do that as well. Last area I want to talk about is how you can add project roles for your Jira software and your Jira Service Management projects. So you have to be a Jira admin to be able to get to this. We go to our settings tab up here, select system, and then security project roles. And within this project roles here, we are now able to look at the usage of a project role, manage default members. So whenever a new project is created, it will add those default members automatically to that project under that project role. We can edit the project role, or we can delete it, or we can add one here. When you're adding a project role, it will appear as an option for all others when they are updating their project roles. Just make sure you put in a good description so that way they know what that project role is meant for. I want to thank you for joining me today in our permissions video for our What Makes a Jira Project series. We went over permissions for a Jira software project, service management project, and a business project. Until next time.